Well, welcome. We're going to be looking at the world from the conservative side with our favorite liberal and two other guests. So we'll see where it takes us. But first, let's start with introductions.
Hi, I'm Mike Soares. I'm a member of the Republican Town Committee.
I am Jeff Niro. I'm Precinct 8 Town Meeting member of the Finance Committee.
Ed Bertorelli, town meeting member and former official in the state Republican Party and member of the town committee.
We never start with local. Why don't we start there, Uncle Ed?
Okay. What would you like to talk about first?
Where do you want to go? You want to talk about districting here? How the immigration affects us? You want to talk about the town meeting and the latest town meeting and the vote?
We talked about what we talked about. We're going to talk about the bus. We're going to talk about the school choice. I mean, those are very relevant things, I think, because people are concerned. I know Harold Rhodes has spoken at length and more at length about the questions about in the school system, how the school system went for a plus school choice balance for years, where people wanted to come to the Milford School District, to a negative balance where people want to leave the Milford School District. And some of the reasons I've heard have been, like a friend, Mr. Rafter, used to use very graphic language to describe that, but we won't use it on the television. But it's sort of feel-good dialogue, and there's been no reasoning or research into why this is happening or whatever. It's a hunch by a lot of us in the community who have been here for many years that it's the basically net effects of the overwhelming of the school system by illegal immigrants, and that many parents choose not to continue in the system because they feel for one reason or another resources are getting directed at, as by law demands, English as a second language, other resources because of the economic situation, and their own children are not getting the education they get.
Let's take a step back. What is school choice? Because a lot of people in Milford have come up and said, if it's costing us a couple $100,000 a year, why don't we just stop it? Mm-hmm. Somebody want to define the problem?
Yeah, so school choice is every parent's right to pull their child out of their community's public school system and choice into another school district that is accepting choice in. Now,
Space. Right.
if they have space. Now, you can always say no to incoming students. You can say, I'm full, we have no room. However, you can never say no to a student who wants to leave your district and they have a spot somewhere else.
So you can stop the inflow.
You can stop the in, you can't stop the out.
But the outflow, which is what Ed was mentioning, when we have 100, 200 kids that want to leave to go somewhere else. And I mean, I've heard it, some go to Hopedale because it's a much smaller school. I don't know of anybody going for a wider curriculum. But when the child goes out, the money goes with them.
Correct.
Well, there are school systems like Hopkinton, Holliston, Mendon, Upton, which have attractive programs now because the populations have grown. I mean, Hopkins acknowledges one of the best school systems around. It's one of the reasons people, I think, will pay the taxes they do in Hopkinton for it. So if there's room, there are choices if people accept them. And obviously, we've got the other issue, which isn't really an issue, it's a good one to have, is we've got a high-quality vocational school, Blackstone Valley, which people really do strive to get into. So,
I think the biggest thing that I know I struggle with, and with the school choice numbers, what's the underlying reason why people are choicing out? We don't know. We've asked the school. We've asked the school several times.
Weren't we supposed to get a survey?
We're supposed to get a survey. Dr. McIntyre is supposed to be commissioning someone for a survey. I know I've talked to a couple of members on the school committee. It's on their list to get a survey done. Not only they're going to survey, they're not only just going to survey people that choice out. They're going to survey why you're choicing in. We want to know that answer, because I don't think people quite understand. We look at the town budget, $100+ million. The school's 60, but $2 million. In addition, another $2 million comes right off the green sheet that we don't even see. That people I don't think can grasp that amount of money. That's a lot of money to not have an answer why kids are going out. You know, and that's what I want to know.
But
you
Jeff,
know?
for years, we've been told that the problem we had, the biggest problem, was that people looked at Woodland and Brookside and did not come away with a favorable impression. And once you lost the kids in the 3rd and 4th grade, they were gone forever.
No.
Now I think about how much money we put into Brookside, and then recently 60+ million. I mean, I look at Woodland, and I don't think it takes a backseat to any elementary school I've ever been in.
No,
No, it's a
absolutely
beautiful
not.
facility.
So now you sit there and say, okay, if we've fixed that issue, then what is the real issue?
Well, and that's why we've been almost begging the school committee to give us actual data. Now, years ago, they provided a list of reasons that people were choicing out, but it wasn't quantified. So it was like, you know, some people are leaving for bullying, some people are leaving because better music or better athletic programs, but they didn't quantify it. So we had no idea, you know, is this...
Wasn't a big sample.
It was also a very small sample. It was only 20 respondents.
It's
However,
not a big sample.
however, we don't know if any of those items were repeating, or these just one-offs. So I think we need to do a much better job at collecting the data, and it doesn't have to be 1 year. It could be over 5-year period. You know, just give us the data as it comes in, and as we start seeing the trends, we can
But
focus on those things.
Fundamentally, people have to understand that you can stop people coming in, which is revenue that we get. But until you deal with why people are choicing out, and there's always going to be some that choice out.
Well,
Right.
the question too is, who should do this survey? And as we were talking, I'm not in favor of the school doing the survey because so far they've been batting 100. I think if the town, and I know the schools are semi-autonomous in their budget in certain ways, and their governance, but that would be something clearly that I think the town would back if we had an independent group to do a survey with a wide thing, and whether it costs $10,000 or $15,000, I would see anyone on the town meeting would say that's money well spent to get to the bottom of the issue, rather than just swimming around in the circle going, well, they haven't done this and they haven't done that and this and that, because it seems to me it's a delaying tactic. That's the way I look at it.
Now, one thing, they are semi-autonomous from management. But let's not kid ourselves. Town meeting controls the purse strings.
Well, that's the key issue. That's why I would say the town meeting would be all in favor of an independent, respected, you know, professional polling people asking questions.
We've never, in the last decade or so, had a floor fight with the school about their budget. We always iron it out ahead of time.
Right.
But if the school said, I want $70 million next year, and the municipal part, mainly FinCom, said no, and we couldn't come to any agreement, the arbitrators are the town meeting members, because they're the ones that are going to vote on an entire budget. And if they don't give them the money, then changes happen.
Well, I think so far the protection for the school department has been the finance committee. I'm not saying this in a negative way, because there are many town meeting members I know who would prefer to go in and make some adjustments to say, hey, get your act together or else. I mean, more conservative town meeting members, and there are a lot of them out there. But the finance committee's always done a great job of balancing and distributing the money and their rationales when they research everything and do it. So we generally abide by what the finance committee would do because it's worked. I mean, obviously.
Well, I mean, there's also, if you remember, we had a town meeting a few years ago where a couple town meeting members got up and said, the reason we're spending so much on special needs and ELL is that we make the programs too attractive. Now, fundamentally, I have a problem. You know, if the worst thing that I have to face in my life is I've helped kids a little bit more than not. But the thing to understand is special needs populations, by definition, by law, the programs are dictated what you must provide. Right. ELL, by law, what programs you must provide. So if you have a $100 budget and you cut it to 90, the $30 or 20 some dollars you're spending on ELL and SPED, that doesn't get touched.
But the thing is, there are a certain number of towns around the state, and I'll use the word burdened, with a large illegal immigrant population. Okay? The state legislature had in the past developed a formula to give extra monies
Yes.
so that the ESL and ELL money wouldn't come out of, but it's been pretty meager so far. Senator Fappin and Rep. Murray have said, you know, they're going to work on it. But the thing is, the Hollistons, the Hopkittens, the Mendons, and the Uxbridges don't have this issue.
Yeah, just to touch on that real
Yeah.
quick. I'm sorry, real sorry. One of the problems with that is that there's a 2 to 3 year delay between when you see the increase in ELL populations and when you get reimbursed from the state. And what we've seen, the trend since about 2012, we went from about 300 ELL students to now we're well over 750. So that's a huge surge
Well, this
in that
year was
population.
The biggest jump I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, Kevin, our superintendent, poked fun at me when he said, and there's people here that remind us we've only gone up 1 student per year.
Yeah.
Because I
This
kept,
year was different.
I kept holding it and saying, 74 was the first year we graduated kids out of that high school. That was my class, 222. Last year was 265. And it's 45 years since we started. So we've added 1 kid per year. What happened last year? We had like 40?
But again, it was the
Yeah, there was a lot.
it was the cycle of, you know, the baby boom and then down and whatever. I mean, we when I was doing some work, a lot of the school systems in Arlington, Framingham has come back, but in Arlington, basically half the students were no longer in the system because of the demographics. Framingham had that, and now it's coming back big time. But again, it's an immigrant population, which is more
Well, I think
challenging.
a lot of the additions are immigrants.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
I do too, and the percentage, the ELL population is definitely, Milford has a, well, 30-something%, a lot, right? But the Chapter 70 is supposed to Mike's point, is supposed to follow it, right? But to your point, 2 points. Woodland School, I agree, it's showpiece, right? It's not an immediate fix. If the kids are choiced out, if the kid's choice is out in 1st grade, he's not going to decide all of a sudden, I'm going to choice back in 4th grade. You have a big lag there.
Yes.
The question is, and this is why it goes back to the survey, the question is, why are you choicing out? Are you choicing out because of academics? You know, you're not choicing out because of band, you're not choicing out because of sports. Are you choicing out because of academics? Are you choicing out because of demographics? I don't think so. I think that's a good thing, and it's a good mix for the town, but what's the reason why people are choicing
There's
out?
one of the causes that nobody wants to talk about. Okay, we've brought it up several times on the show with school administration, saying the impression with a lot of people is that you're going to teach down. So if I have a lot of immigrants who don't speak English, I mean, let's face it, when my parents came over, my father had 4 years of school. That's what you got in the back villages.
But again,
in Portugal.
that's another world.
But
Yeah.
Ed, it was the same thing. You know, when you turn around and say there was an image, and I wonder, we don't want to talk about it because it's impolite, but people do talk that you go to towns around us, it's a much more homogeneous population.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think not only do I want to know the reason why people are choicing out that the survey should give us, I don't blame the school. It's not the school doesn't own it. It's a town issue.
Yes.
Because the immigrants and everything are coming here because of housing costs, because of accessibility, because of housing stock. They can live here, and because they live here with the children, we have to educate them. So it's not just the school. The school gets it as a byproduct, so it's not just their thing. But how do we address it? How do we fix it? You know, and how do we correct? How do we teach to that population to push our scores up?
And the other issue too is, it was brought up when, I think it was now 5 or 6 years ago, some honor society students went to the school committee and they talked about an unsafe atmosphere at the high school. And you know, there's anecdotal evidence from time to time to time that the discipline in the middle school, Stacy Middle School, and the high school is not what it should be. And there have been some administrative moves recently, but that's something that's, again, gets lost in because the superintendent's in charge, but if kids don't feel safe in a school, and it's something, again, we have the police officers and all that, but beyond that atmosphere, that has to also be answered, because that's a key thing in a question.
And that was a big deal about 8, 9 years ago.
Right.
When you looked, at the Milford papers, you saw young ladies fighting in the courtyard and altercations, but I haven't heard anything lately.
Right,
But
and
I'm
if
not
that
saying-
is the reason why students are choicing out is because they don't feel unsafe, that's a great reason.
Yeah.
We should know that, and we need
Yes.
that data so that we can fix it. Because
address it.
otherwise, we're going to think it's other things like curriculum or demographics.
That's what
But something like that, I don't want to be cold about it, it's fixable.
But the point is, but let's
You know,
let's
if
get
kids
back to
if kids are fighting in the hall, you just need more people out in the hall.
Yeah, but let's get back to doing a survey, because the recipe right now is that we're going to be talking about this 2 years from now and still nothing's going to be done. I think the finance committee's got to approach the school and say, here's what we're going to do, and we want to, I think an outside professional firm, so the stuff would be done anonymously, people would respond to the questions in a professional way, might be very eye-opening to people.
From what I understand, that's what the school's plan is, to hire
Yeah.
a third party to do it.
Yeah,
You know,
good.
and it's on their docket for this year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
know,
but
because-
maybe, how do I say this nicely? Maybe if the person who was paying the third party wasn't somebody with a lot of skin in the game. If you think about it, if I'm working for you,
I
okay,
understand what you're saying, yeah.
it's different than if I'm working for him who, well, whether I give yay or nay, if I give a nay and the school committee's paying me, I may be worried that I'll ever get business again. So maybe subconsciously, it does
Usually the
affect me.
hiring person sets somewhat up the parameters, but since this is such a public thing and there's 7 members on the committee, you'd wonder about that. But we probably should go on to another.
Fundamental question, should Milford have public transportation?
I guess that's really up to the residents. Town meeting voted for it. The bus had
But
probably
don't get into what transportation, just fundamentally. You've never been shy before. Why are you holding back? Yay or nay, if you had the deciding vote, should we have public
No,
transportation?
I think it's important. It's definitely, there's a lot of reasons why a public transport system is beneficial to a community, whether it be young students or elder people that can't, they can't drive or don't have reliable transportation. So some sort of system, whether it be a bus or the senior center, a shuttle, or whatever the mode is, I think public transportation in general is very important for a community.
Jeff?
My answer is definitely yes, but the yes is that it's accessible to everyone. The bus, I know you're not against the specifics, the bus is not. My parents live up Bear Hill. No way are they going to get to a bus stop. This never going to happen. Yet every taxpayer on the rolls is funding it, and to me that's not right that they don't have access to it. So yes, there should be public transportation, but something.
And we'll
we
get
can get
into
into specifics.
options.
Yeah.
But Ed?
Well, I was in transportation for many years, worked in Department of Transportation. This system that we're part of there are, I think, 12 or 13 regional transit authorities. So they service the Cape and Islands, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, the Cape, Southeast Mass, and they're all basically on the same model. The only, basically bus-driven, the only thing they do offer is a ride factor for medical appointments or whatever people schedule. But it's at a certain stage in time, but you're right, it's very limited and route bound by where people are. Now, what the alternatives might be, given modern technology and whatever, is something we could get into, I suppose.
Well, now we have a bus. It runs around Milford every hour. Is it about-
Does a loop every hour.
Does a loop about
13
once
hours a day, 5 days a week.
How's it working?
I think it's doing pretty well. The numbers have been increasing steadily every year. So we had probably, the first year was about 900 riders. It was also a very shortened year because it only started September, really. By the next year, we're talking thousands of riders. I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but we're well over 1,000 riders a month now, continuously as a running average.
So we're about 12,000 people a year.
We're getting about 15,000 a year now.
And we're spending $250,000?
That's how much the service costs. It's split between the state and the town of Milford. So I'm not exactly 100% sure where the split is, but yes, the total cost of the program is $250,000.
I think I saw it from the Paul Center. I think it was 90,000 came off the cherry sheet for this fiscal year. I think for the bus
90,000
Would have been Milford's share.
will Milford
came off the
share.
cherry sheet. Yeah.
But there's $250,000 going into keeping it rolling.
From the
Correct.
state, yes.
You know,
So it's about $20 a ride,
Well, yeah.
right?
Yep.
I'm not trying to.
No, you're right.
No, yeah.
You know, my understanding of it is that you know, I saw the documentation that the bus was going to do 30,000 rides a year. We're not even close to that. You know, the other thing I'm uncomfortable with is after the first vote, which it was a no-brainer. It was an easy vote for the first year. Now it's automatic. People don't have a chance to vote on it again. You know, it's not part of the budget. That's renewed every year. It doesn't come up as an article. We never see it as an article. We never see it come before the
No
FinCom.
special legislation to extend the transit authority to Milford, so we don't have to choose to vote at it.
But it costs us $90,000.
Well,
We don't vote on
Off
it.
the cherry sheet, yeah.
But either way, I mean, you know, Jeff's point
Right.
earlier was when we talk about how much money school choice costs, you can't forget that there's a couple $1,000,000 on top of the game, that money we don't get.
Well, there's another aspect to the system too. The linkage is there, and they already do at least, I think, 2 in the morning, linking to Framingham for people to get in. I think it's remarkable how public transportation declined in 40 or 50 years from having a train to Boston, which you know, we're mayors of the Heights, and some of our mayors who are of an age used to take the train every day to go to school because they couldn't afford to be residents. Day hops had a much cheaper rate, and took the train right where Depot Liquors is, and took the train down the line to Framingham to Boston every day and came back at night. The same way, you remember the bus line, and I can remember the bus line right up into, I believe, into the early 80s that had commuter buses to Boston, and they were pretty full. But all that fell away, and it's amazing how far down we got and how far back up we have to get now. So, but the other point, every ride on the state transportation system is subsidized in one way or another. That's the nature of it. Trains, buses,
My
whatever.
only question, it still remains open in my mind, is this the best alternative? At $20 a ride, and maybe it'll go down, but we're not going to expect it to double and get down to $10 a ride. I mean, we have a van at the senior center. That is available to everybody, except Sue has done too good of a job, and now it's booked solid.
It's full.
But, you know,
It's door to door.
what you mentioned was a concern I had. Now, we're up at the ends of the earth,
Sure.
and for my mother, when she was still with us at 90 years old, to take a bus, to get on the bus, she only had to walk 2.5 miles, 3 miles,
Well,
which is impossible.
but it's a different model, that's the point. One of the problems with a lot of the models in the bus systems are they're based on an urban model. So, you know, even though they do go out, they're still on that same idea, you know.
Yeah.
Framingham is in a sense an urban model, but whatever, but Worcester.
Where you have a
cities.
large concentration of people all along the bus route that can take advantage of it.
Right.
But now, my fundamental question is, I'm not debating, because I believe we should have public transportation. We saw the special ed staff, the teachers come up, and we saw the kids tell us how important it is for them to feel that they're free, that they can get on a bus, go to work. I mean, that all counts. Forget, that's not just pure analytical data.
Right.
But the question is, would we be better off taking that $250,000 and putting 2 extra point-to-point buses down at the senior center? What I call Milford Uber.
Well, you could also add those too. I mean, the question is, in the public domain, innovation, should I say, is almost slow or non-existent. I mean, the innovations that came from Uber, Lyft, and whatever were private initiatives. So in a way, to me, what the state should be looking at is integrating the Uber, Lyft concept and these van concepts in with their own and still offer a basic service as well. But that's something that you know, when you're dealing with state government and innovation, they seem to be at odds. Well, just like in a lot of local government even.
My take on every public service in the town is that if every taxpayer is paying for it, they should have access to it.
Yep.
You know, and it's just not realistic for the bus. You know, so
Yep.
is it
No,
a lot of
couldn't be.
money?
It couldn't
No,
be.
but it's just. So to me, it's like, to your point, is there an alternative that would be? You know, add another van, add some kind of Uber service. I don't know.
And I agree with you, only that reality dictates otherwise.
Well,
You know, not every person in Milford, not every area can have sewer. Not every
Yeah, but-
person in Milford, not every home has town water, which amazed me.
but that's
And
a minority thing. Let's just put it that way.
And it might be a combination solution, right?
Yeah.
So maybe
It might be.
the bus
Yeah.
might support most of the Milford community, but for people like Jeff's parents on Bear Hill, maybe we can have an Uber service so that they can at least get to our bus stop. You know, there might be a combination.
And we have an Uber, you know, Sue Clark has a van that runs up and down and around, but now it's so popular with the seniors that it's full
But do you
all the
remem-
time.
Do you remember when we had cab companies till the state legislated them out of business? I mean, the state put in rules on cab companies and liability and this and that basically demolished the cab companies. But the cab companies, and what do we have, 2 or 3 in Milford at one time, Town Taxi, Ted Taxi, and another. This is what Uber, car Uber has done. That might be a way to integrate that as well, because if you've got 10 well-trained drivers who are experienced in dealing with seniors, there's a lot of bang for the buck in how many trips you can do a day, and these 10 people are making a little salary out of it. You know, it's be an interesting thing.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more dialogue, not that, like you say, it's a pass-through.
Right.
We voted it, it's here, we won't change it.
I know we've asked the committee a couple times to do give us some options. I know for the finance committee, we've asked the committee a couple times to get to evaluate some options and bring them. I don't know. Have you guys worked on that? Or?
No, I mean we don't have a real budget, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, we pretty much whatever options come to us. We don't really have like. a
Well, if we
consultant to
step
work
out
with.
of Milford, and that's the longest we've ever talked about,
How long have we been on? A half hour?
half hour on
Excellent.
local.
Yeah, but that's good, though.
And we didn't even talk about town meeting, but let's
Yeah.
move over to the state. Seems like the state's doing pretty well.
Well, the segue from what you said about, they're all connected, immigration, transportation, whatever. They're all connected. As I said, everybody in the state, no matter where they live, subsidizes public transportation in the state, whether it's rail, bus, subway, in one way or another. The system, as you've heard from some stories and whatever, because the press tends to go in and pick up things on accidents and whatever. The state transportation system is in the middle of a vast rebuild, but from the equipment that 50, 60, 70 years old. But the rebuild requires delays and things being taken out of service to rebuild. So that's one of the challenges that the Baker administration has been involved with. And it's one that's brought a little criticism because the state is doing well. I think Baker's popularity ratings are astronomical. There are forces in the state, as I seek from a conservative point of view, the Boston Globe and the Democrats, who are looking for any way to undermine Baker. And of course, if there is a problem in state management, they can seize on it. And that is a problem. It's a problem that is going to require a lot of work in trying to get the transportation system.
But can you
where it
ever
should.
win that? I mean, I got a real kick out of the protests about don't raise, what was it? The beatings will continue until morale improves.
Yes, that's
Don't raise the MBTA price until you've invested and fixed all the problems.
Yes.
And I sat there and said, okay, it seems a bit counterintuitive to me that the expenses go up at least 2-3% a year, right?
No question.
Probably more than that.
Probably
really.
more, but at least inflation.
Yeah.
And if you don't raise rates,
Can't pay for it.
then how do you pay for even staying whole?
Well, I think the unwritten thing that these people were saying who lived in Boston was they wanted everyone else to pay for it. One of the things that didn't increase in the fares were the bus fares because the Boston activists demanded and got no fare increase. So Councilwoman, I think Woolwood was talking about no fare increase. She forgot to mention that buses didn't go up.
But now,
Yeah.
if the fares don't go up, and I believe that's the only revenue that comes in, then the state has to pump in more of our tax
A
money.
percentage of the, a piece of the sales tax goes into it as well, the state's sales tax into the T. Yep.
And I think that's, you know, a lot of people in Western Mass get really frustrated because, you know, their tax money goes to subsidize people on the MBTA
They can't access.
that they can't access because they're all the way in Western Mass and everything is centralized around Boston. You know, they don't have a Berkshire's, you know, transit
But
authority.
compared to what Metro West residents pay, I mean, I've always been amazed at the disproportionate amount people who go east-west pay compared to north-south.
On the Pike? Or
Well, on the Pike. I mean, the Pike's been paid for how long?
But,
Yeah, 8
but
times
that
over.
that was again, a balancing trick to pay for the big dig.
Right.
Okay, the turnpike would have been free a long time ago, except that they transferred the debt from the big dig
Into the turnpike.
onto the turnpike, which really had, except for the Ted Williams tunnel, had very little to do with it because what did it go from $1 billion to 15 billion in a snapshot?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but why would, to Al's point, why would north and south not be, that's what's impacted, certainly impacted by the big dig, why would that not contribute to the
Well,
funds?
The only thing I can think of, votes.
Well, north and south do if you're near Boston. In other words, this way, over by the suburbs this way. But basically, most of the population of the state is from, a vast percentage of it is from Worcester East, so.
See,
But
I'm
Ed-
going to take an opposite position. I almost hear that it almost sounds like you guys are supporting a north-south tolling. I think that we should just get rid of the east-west tolling. If north and south aren't paying it, why should east-west pay for it? You know?
But that was the whole issue, if you remember, where they started saying, because of what we were paying the ticket toll takers, and I always loved when I saw the median salary, almost $60,000, and when I saw some of the salaries ran up to 80, because they said, well, that's what you have to pay for comparable positions. And I said, okay, ticket toll taker, what's a comp? The guy who says, do you want fries with that order?
Right.
And he's not
Whoop.
making, last time I
Whoop.
looked, 80,000,
Whoop.
right?
Careful. You
So
may
they,
get some
they said
calls
they were
here
going
at
to
home.
take, oh, I know, but they were going to take all the tolls off the Mass Pike. So they started with out west, and everybody agreed, because it was costing more, because of all the benefits and all, to collect the tolls than they were getting.
Collect it.
Then all of a sudden it was like, okay, to your point, it's time now to go from 128 to west of Worcester and cut those tolls out.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, okay, but where are you going to get the money
Well,
to replace it?
If you had kept Governor Weld in, Governor Weld was one of the ones who did it, and he was a quirky guy, and he said, let's get rid of them, and people couldn't, out west at first, people couldn't think of a good reason to keep them, because he thought outside the box. Then he was replaced by others, but it's an interesting issue as far as the money
But
goes.
I think what I read finally is they realized that most of the money out west was coming from the New Yorkers going
Yeah.
up to Vermont and all. The locals weren't using the Pike.
the
So
other-
they put the tolls back on.
The other thing which is amazing is the lack of, we supposedly have an intelligent population, supposedly great media. No one pointed out, when all this was going on about the toll collect, we were the last state in the country to have toll collect. Fact, the last state. No one pointed that simple thing out. Everyone was arguing about whether they should be there or not. 49 states and one, okay?
But Ed,
What, toll
290,
collectors?
Yes.
New York still has them too.
Well, where though? In the tunnels?
No, right in the throughway.
They do?
Yeah,
Oh,
we just did it
Oh,
this
all right,
last
okay.
weekend.
290
They have a mix.
Yeah.
towns have self-serve, right? Out of 300? Milford, for the longest
Well, the ones
time,
that have gas stations, yeah.
right? We were one of the 10 towns that didn't have self-serve.
Yeah.
And I remember I always laughed because the argument was they weren't safe.
Right.
And I always laughed. I said, what happens when you go
Well-
over the border of Milford? Do you become brain dead?
No, but that was a reason. We got to respect the reason that happened. We're looking. We can make an analogy to what happened in one of the presidential debates with what you're saying is that was done because the gas stations in Milford at the time were all family owned.
It was to protect 3 families.
No,
yes.
it wasn't 3 families. The point is they were family owned to people we knew.
Yes.
And okay, but that's what. See, sometimes I look at your. Let me just put it this way. There's good things about Milford, and that's one of the things I like is the fact that at the time they were all family-owned
And
stations.
we take care of our own.
They weren't chains, and they weren't whatever. And the cost of doing and implementing the things might have put them out of business. So to me, that's worth something. That's the way I look at it.
But
we could look at it from a balance sheet
Ed,
point of view.
I would have
but
been
we could,
happier if we just said,
Well-
look at Murphy's Mobile. There's no room to put a second island. Look at these places. They're Milford families.
I know, but it's the phrasing of it. Let's just put it that way. We could always take a balance sheet point of view about every issue.
Right.
And then sometimes I think we end up on the wrong side of it because the balance sheet doesn't tell the full story. That's the way I
Yeah,
look
but
at it.
Milford has always taken care of our own. You know, at the end of the day.
But
when
again,
you look at, no, but I don't like when you hide it. To tell me that we can't have self-serves because they're not safe. I'm sorry, my mind doesn't stop working when I go to the next town,
Yeah.
right? And it's safe for me to pump gas in every other town, but not Milford. So when I cross over, I don't become brain dead.
No, but the thing that carried the thing at the town meeting was, at the station, was that the fire chief got up and said he had looked at it, it was safe. Everyone was waiting, was a little late in the discussion, everyone was waiting for the okay from the professionals.
It's actually safer.
No, but I'm just saying the town meeting, we're sitting there going, when are we going to hear from?
I think there were 2 things that swayed the vote, just personal opinion. One, the families are no longer in jeopardy. You know, those single island gas stations
Well, they're all gone.
are gone. So you
Or they're
weren't-
owned by other folks that are. Yeah.
But they're gone.
They're all corporate.
They're no longer Milford families you're
Yeah.
looking out for.
Yeah.
And number 2, statistics say when they build a new gas station with self-serve, all of the safety equipment, the suppression and all, it's safer than the 20 and 30-year-old gas stations.
The thing we should talk about if we're on the Milford thing, though, is the lack of gas stations, especially in the part of town.
Especially in the 140 area.
140
area.
The only one you got is Sunoco.
Where we had Ray's, we had the Murphys, we had another one on the other side of the street at one time, and now where a lot of the commuters are, and also a lot of Hopedale and other people, there's no gas station.
If you talk to Ray, and when he moved, it was, well, Ray, what's going to happen to gas? He goes, I was making, if I was lucky, a couple $100 a week
Yes.
in gas profit. It amazed me.
Yeah.
For all the work he did, they had the gas there,
Like as a
the
convenience.
BP, to bring people in.
Right.
Once he established himself, now people will go out of their way to go see Ray. So he didn't need the gas.
Yeah.
I mean, it's annoying because, I mean, I got to admit, I like the idea of having my gas pumped when it's raining or snowing.
Here we go. All right.
Okay, I got to admit, it's kind of nice. I'll pay a little bit more so I don't have to stand out in the rain.
And what about when you get to your twilight years, you don't want to pump it, you know, I mean, you've got to,
Yeah, so there are reasons, but personally, I think the market takes care of that.
Yeah.
Because if everybody went self-serve, like some towns, and you got the one gas station, when we were in Hollystone, when we were in Holliston, up by 126, there was one gas station that had full serve. Not full, mini, they pumped it. It was always full.
Yeah. Well,
And there were plenty of self-serves around it.
yeah. And I think just one more thing with the state. I think from what I hear, Governor Baker is interested in running for a 3rd term, which is unusual. Most people, governors, go 2 terms. Dukakis served 3, but split terms.
We don't have term limit?
No.
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 It's news to me.
No. And Dukakis served 1 term and then split and then 2 terms. So that's the word out. I think he's been putting feelers out for that. Obviously, his popularity and his ratings are through the roof.
I mean, you think about it. Charlie Baker came in and made a whole bunch of promises, and then he kept them.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, wait a minute, who is this guy? Since Bill Weld,
Well, he's very low key. That's the point. He's a consummate administrator and very low key.
but he kept them.
Yep.
And the economy turned. It seems like Massachusetts is doing well. I don't know about you, but I'm happy.
Well, the construction trades around Boston, I mean, there's nonstop. I mean, we have our own construction
Well,
company, Consigli, which is amazingly busy.
That whole
and
People's
hiring people.
Republic of Cambridge is amazing.
Yeah.
$90 a square foot? You gotta be kidding
But
me.
also there are universities, hospitals, companies putting up headquarters or whatever all over. When you talk to people in construction, it's amazing.
The
But
sad
that's a
is-
similar story that's happening all over the nation. That's no longer a Massachusetts only
Yeah.
thing. That's, I think that's just one example of how this economy has really ramped
Yeah.
up in the last few years.
Thank God Obama set it all up.
Well,
I think Governor Baker, though, to your point about Governor Baker, I think, certainly issues have happened, and look at the registry thing just happened. It's been addressed, the registrar, head of the registry resigned, right? I don't think it was just on their own volition. That was a,
Oh, you don't think that the head of the registry just said, "Oh, I really screwed up. I should step aside"?
No
You think there was some
comment.
help?
no comment.
No, but
state police, another one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it. These big issues come up, and somehow the Baker administration takes care of them.
Well, the thing is, which also the media don't point out, especially the Globe, was that these issues state police, problems with the registry didn't
Well,
arise.
those just happened during the Baker administration.
No.
That's Ed's point, right?
A long-standing, process,
You know, they try and point out the police issue. That only happened for 3 years, right?
Oh, yeah.
It never happened before.
Yeah. The minute a new governor got in, they knew
They
the
just
gravy
knew they could
train
change
was right
it.
there, and yep.
I think
You know-
the saddest part is, though, that Massachusetts, Republican especially governors, can't leave New England. Bill Weld. What happened to Bill Weld when he tried going out to the square states?
Yeah, that's a good transition because what I was about to say, it's funny that you watch Baker and you see how popular he is, and he's center right, like he's really close to the center, and yet you look nationally and everyone tries to tell you, oh, you can't be center, you won't get your base out to vote. You have to be far right or you have to be progressive left. And here's Baker being very centrist, center right, and he's the most popular governor in the nation.
But isn't that a Massachusetts thing?
No, it isn't.
think
No,
it-
but
I-
Ed,
it isn't.
How do you tell the difference
Well,
between a conservative Massachusetts Republican and a liberal Massachusetts Republican and a conservative Massachusetts Democrat? They kind of come
but
together.
There are many conservative Massachusetts Democrats, but I'll give you an example. There's
Not in your opinion.
no. Well,
Mike
they're
Moore.
a vanishing breed. There used to be a lot of them in the legislature. When Marie was in the legislature, she was pretty much a conservative Democrat. She's not there anymore. But the governors of New Hampshire and Vermont are very popular governors, and they're in the same sort of mold as governor in Vermont is very popular, and Sununu, who's the son of the former senator and governor, are very popular. But this goes to the whole thing of, you say center, left, or right, but when you look at the crop of Democratic, well, I guess one of the California congressmen had the shortest campaign in history, a month. But what are they down to 21 or 22 candidates who are running for president? Whether that's serious or not is an issue.
Do you think that'll swing back once they eat their young?
Well, I think they're claiming that the debate format and everything, it might bring it down to 6 or 7.
Is that because of the money that they have to raise?
Yeah.
I think a lot of it-
And they've got to compete in the California primary for the Democrats is the big kahuna of everything. It's the big kahuna in popular vote as well, as we know, when the last election. But so you'd have to guess as to who they would be, probably Biden, Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris probably because she's risen up a bit, and I go beyond there. There's 4. I'm trying to think
Buddha.
of who.
Buttigieg. You think he's going to cut it, or is he going to fade out?
Well, he's raising money, but I mean, it's a landmark to think that a publicly, openly gay candidate could run for president. What his appeal would be among voters would be another issue.
Do you think people even think of that
I was
now?
going to say that.
Well,
That,
no,
to
but,
me sounds
well,
like it'd be a
nobody
positive
in
in
your
this
well,
day
yeah,
and
but
age.
yeah, you can say they don't, but they do. So let's just put it that way.
I mean, I got to tell you that until you brought it up, I never looked at him in that way. I just looked at him as like he's too far left from me.
No, well, I'm going to say what his opponents are going to talk about quietly, because when you say, when you said eat their own, you know the opposition research is going to basically come from other Democrats as to how they're going to
Posture.
go after things.
Well,
And
you
they're
look how
already
quickly
doing that.
they went after Biden.
Yeah.
You know, as
Yeah,
soon
but
as they
that's number
realized-
one. You're
Yeah,
going to go
he's
after
the front runner. So
and you know, when
they
you
just-
mentioned it, is it only money? I think money is the barometer that's used, but I think
Qualifier,
identity.
right?
You got 21
name-
people each trying
Name
to be
recognition.
more something than everybody else, and right now it seems like all of them are trying to run more left,
they are.
just to establish themselves. I'm further left than Bernie.
Well, when you started saying that Joe Biden is a racist, and you were lining, you were in lines to vote for him not 4 and 8 years ago, but now suddenly he's racist because of the people he
Well,
worked with.
but you know what I
in the
didn't
70s.
like?
Is that the posture because of Trump's position? That's why they're taking that posture, right? It's like everybody's against
Yeah,
Trump.
everyone
right? So
who's
we're gonna
not
take
as
this
super
posture,
progressive
right?
is now racist.
But you know, I hate, candidly, Jeff, I know you're not an axe murderer, but some people think you might be because.
Well, it's a smear.
Yeah, but wait a minute. I don't think you're racist. Well, then why would you bring it up? Why would you start?
Because it's a poison word. It's like the tar and feathering of people. Once you throw that word out, but the irony is, this is how the New York Times and other papers are so far to the left. They don't like Biden because he's not their cup
He's
of
not
tea.
far enough to the left?
No, but
he's medium
it's
left.
beyond that. It's also probably other things in their age.
I
and
think he
his
flips
style.
too much too.
Yeah. But the point is, this racist candidate, the fact is that he's the most popular candidate by a mile with African American voters in the country. And African American primary voters in the Democratic primary rule a lot of states because they're disproportionate numbers. His figures are over 50% popularity, and over 50% of the African American voters going to
Ed,
vote for him. Well,
You got the OC. You got Harris. You got these people saying college should be free.
Yeah.
Medical needs should be free.
well,
Debt should be removed.
no, it's
How can you say?
it's OC and the other one from Minnesota who was
Yes.
Klobuchar?
No.
the woman from Somalia.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
drawing.
Omar.
Omar.
And then the other one who called Trump names
But
from Michigan.
how can you say college should not be free?
Let's book a.
That's like saying
Let's book a.
world peace should occur. How can you say it shouldn't? Aren't you
Well, how do
getting?
you? How do you pay
if
for it? That's
wait a minute.
You know?
Get back to Margaret Thatcher.
Well,
Socialism is the best form of government
Yeah.
until you run out of other people's money.
I wonder, and I say this, AOC supposedly, did she go to school in Boston? She worked on Kennedy's staff. I think she went to one of the colleges up here. She was involved in a lot of very liberal organizations when she was a student up here. My question would be, what is the quality of the education that they teach? And I'm being very cynical here. The quality of the education they teach in these schools, if they think socialism has worked anywhere. That's what they're saying. I mean, just look at Venezuela right now.
Venezuela, the
Yeah.
biggest oil reserves in the world.
I mean, but
Yeah.
what are these colleges teaching these kids?
But Ed, college has
Not
always
history.
been a haven for the liberal, open-minded. You know, as long
People
as
who
you
didn't get the real world
believe like they do, they love you.
until you don't.
And then all of a sudden you get somebody, they're fighting for that pesky First Amendment till somebody wants to come in and talk like a conservative.
Well, look
then
at-
they get booed down.
How
But look
many
at that
times-
reporter that was beaten
Yeah.
by Antifa.
Yeah.
You know, simply because he was a conservative journalist. You know that.
But that whole, maybe I'm not smart enough to understand Antifa.
Yeah.
Anti-fascist.
Anti-fascist.
Now,
Yeah.
if I am an anti-fascist,
Yeah.
don't I have to believe in your right
No.
to have a different opinion?
It's just a
Fascists shut down.
If you understand what the definition of fascism, but
Why would they cover
They-
their faces if they do what they're doing is
Well, no, the
honorable?
problem I have is,
Well-
why would they run around pulling camera lights off or pulling cords so that they can't record any conservative speech? If they're anti-fascists, they should welcome it. I may not, we
Yes,
had this
but-
discussion about the skinheads. It really ticks me off that I have to defend their right to have a stupid, I can't call it stupid, to have an opinion that I disagree with.
you can call it stupid.
But Al,
But they have a right. That's the
But Al,
pesky First
you say-
Amendment.
Right.
You say, but Ed, I say, but Al. The fact is, many of these groups know the media is not going to cover this because it doesn't fit their MO as to whatever. So Antifa sometimes gets a free pass because the media just pretends that violence isn't there. Now, if there was a little more bipartisan violence, a left and a right, you can better would get covered, I'd say. Now, the other one we're talking about is, Mike, and we've talked about this in different shows, the rise of Liz Warren. I think we all had her sort of packaged and put away for some of her gaffes, but she's rising in the polls and she's making a lot of money. Lizzie Warren.
Do you think she'll last?
I think as soon as she gets anywhere near the top 3 candidates, they're going to pull all the DNA tests that, you know, all those gaffes and everything, that I'm 1/64th Indian and, you know,
1,000th.
1,000th.
She's one, yeah.
hey, whatever the number is, it's just ridiculous, you know?
See, I think right now there's certain candidates benefiting from drafting. They're drafting Joe Biden.
Sure, I agree.
Because Joe's taking all the spears. Or I can't say arrows, that would be politically incorrect.
It's
Well,
any.
and for her, yes.
You know, Joe's taking all the hits.
Ugh.
And, you know,
Not enough focus on the rest.
and the number 2, 3, 4 kind of going along. But eventually,
Well,
20 is going to be down to 3 or 4 serious candidates.
Yeah.
you
And
gotta
then that's
get-
why I say I think all the parties, because I don't think the Republicans are any better.
No.
yeah, but we have a president. That's the point. I mean, so
No, when we had 20
well,
Republican
we had 16 on the
candidates,
stage.
16.
Yes, yeah. Oh, yeah. But they're looking for to air out their campaign and raise some money.
One compliment I will give the Democrats was I did like that the 2 debates that they had 10 and 10, right? It was randomly selected versus the Republicans, they had the top tier,
Yeah.
and then no one watched the
And then the
bottom
B
tier.
team.
Yeah, and it was so
Yeah.
insulting to anyone that
I mean,
was on that
was
second
something
debate.
that when they said, okay,
So,
Yeah.
here's the varsity,
yeah.
and then next
Here's the junior league.
we'll
yeah.
have the JVs.
Well, I guess the person who got the award for me for the most disingenuous, dishonest candidate was Kamala Harris, when she went after Biden about busing, because you could take anyone's position in a context, and 15, 20 years later, it appears a little different. Just like when he said, I worked with the senators from Mississippi and Alabama when I was in the
segregationists.
Senate. Well, they were, by the way, Democrat senators, which the media didn't point out. They were Democratic senators, not Republican, and they were some of the most powerful people in the
But
Senate
I think
because
he
they'd
had
been there
a
forever.
legitimate point.
But the
I
way
think
he
his
was-
point was,
Yeah.
I had to work with people who I disagree with to get something done. Okay?
But you didn't hear that part of it from a lot of the media.
No,
which
and I'm
is-
not a
yeah.
Biden fan.
No, but you
when
didn't
I
hear that.
listened to him, what I heard was, okay, right now in Washington, it's worse than it was with Obama. Trump, it's just visceral. If Trump says black, I say white.
No matter
Period.
what,
No matter what, even if I like what he says. You know, I mean, we joke sometimes about town meeting that certain people walk up and right away, you know, please talk against my amendment. Please talk against my article. You know, and it's the same thing. If Trump says yay, 48% of the people are going to say no just because of it. You know,
But it was a balance in the government then, and it was and also the parties had, each party, which goes to your point, both the Republican and the Democratic Party had conservatives and liberals in the party. So, for example, Senator Brooke would be a liberal from Massachusetts, and on the Republican side, there'd be a Midwestern senator. The same way there'd be a senator from New Hampshire is a Democrat and a senator from Mississippi, or Biden. So each parties were more a blend, but now the moderates or the middle of the road people have been shaken out of both of those
Yeah,
parties.
but
I
Ed, I
think.
long for the days of Tip O'Neill and Reagan.
Oh.
You couldn't get people with more diametrically opposed views.
Yes.
But they showed respect. You know, they could fight, and then the cameras went off, they went and had a beer. You know,
Well, now in this universe where Twitter is everywhere, and I think it was just this week where a judge ruled that Donald Trump cannot block people on Twitter because he's a public official. And
Well, his account is not
Yeah.
private.
yeah, exactly. It's a
Yeah.
it's
And the National Archives are recognized.
right, exactly. So it's
Wow.
interesting how technology has really
But
changed our politics.
here's one thing that I don't understand. So the Democratic Party said we're not going to let Fox News run any of the presidential debates.
Yeah.
Okay, so does that not then beg the Republicans to say, CNN, you can't run any? So who's going to run they
Well-
come into Milford?
Well, no, the only, Al, the only problem is that for the Republicans, and I say this a long time watching this, is the Republicans would have to ban the main networks and CNN and MSNBC because they're all doing the same. If you listen to the CBS, ABC, and NBC News nightly news, they're hardly impartial.
Well, Ed, I get up in the morning, I have my Sirius radio, channel 114,
Cuba?
Fox News. After a certain point, 116, CNN. Because I believe somewhere in the middle
Yes.
is the truth.
I thought you had Radio Havana on in the morning. when
No.
you were- No, all right.
But I figured somewhere in the middle, because all I hear is the Democrats are all demons. Then I flip over, oh, those devil Republicans. It's like, okay, let me try and sift
Well,
through this.
Decipher it.
I think the scary thing is that the pollsters and the what they call is the people who analyze groups and groupthink, they figured out there's a lot more money to be made by taking extreme positions on things than moderate positions. So you come in as a moderate, they're going to go, well, what's the? But if you rally the base on each side with crazy stuff, people are going to send you
Well,
money.
I mean, Ed, look at the whole immigration issue. I mean, I got to give Trump some points when he says, wait a minute, a lot of these policies were in place when I came into this
Right.
office.
He hasn't
You know, the
changed any
kids in
policies.
cages picture?
Yeah.
I love that one. When they showed that it was taken 2 years earlier,
Before him.
Yeah,
and they blamed him.
right.
They're still blaming him.
Yeah, but
So he didn't incorporate any of these procedures. It's just the sheer volume of that is increased from all the South American countries and Central American countries. There's such a huge surge in people claiming asylum, and yet Democrats want to scream that these conditions are so harsh, but they won't give Border Patrol more funding to make those conditions
but when-
better.
the immigration crisis, a lot of it happens to be Trump's fault. He got our economy going. He made the country
Good
more
point.
successful.
Very good point.
Those
Right?
jobs.
So if you want
I
to
can't argue
say
that.
Trump caused a lot of it, you're right.
Yes, the money's here.
Okay? I mean, I love the idea when Obama said, well, the economy's doing so well because I set it up.
Okay.
Okay, the first few years it was Bush, 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 bad Bush, bad Bush. But the last 5 years, where we never went over 2%,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, new guy shows up and we're at 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't believe in coincidences.
Right.
no, but Trump is not going to get any credit from the mainstream media. He's going to get credit from people, you know. For example, when they did the tax cut, okay, 90% of the media coverage was, my refund is not as much as it was before. And every tax person who got on said, well, there's a main reason for that. You're getting more every week.
Every week.
But they emphasized,
Your refund.
Your refund.
bad habits are,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I love when they say all the tax cut money, most of it goes to the wealthy.
Yeah.
Okay, wait a minute. We're not talking about the 42% who pay zero federal tax, right? But we're coming to an end. Then we'll have to get together soon because there's issues like the Milford pool. Are we going to fund it or not? That
We
we
have a
should
pool?
talk about. And the border issue. and the drug issue. There's a lot of things coming up.
Well, especially immigration, directly affects our town. It's
Yeah, of course.
interesting. Yeah.
Well, as always, to our 6 loyal viewers and our new panelist,
Thank you, Al.
Yes.
thank you for
Welcome.
tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you again or having you watch us debate this. And the fundamental question is Ed really a closet liberal?
Absolutely. I'm turning that. It's,
May God bless. May tomorrow be a better night than tonight. Thanks for joining and putting up with us. Good night.
Not too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just for my soul.